This is the latest update on the project for the Liverpool Overhead Railway, and I'm just running the session which Bob has created. This is just the placeholder for Dingle Station. As you can see, it was a completely underground station, and we've taken the roof off, as it were. And then there's the tunnel. And then along to here, this is where we've been doing quite a lot of work, and it's taken quite a bit of mucking about, and we're beginning to get there. We've some way still to go, but we're beginning to get there. And this is the tunnel portal for coming from Dingle for the LOR, and then the characteristic bridge, which the largest bridge on the whole of the Liverpool overhead. And these are the oil casements that are still there, protected by, I think it's English heritage, and they eventually will run right the way through to the end there. It's just that we've got, this is Herculaneum dock itself, so we've still got quite a lot of work to do there. But this whole area has taken quite an effort to get sorted out, and really it represents a lot of modelling work. Herculaneum dock station itself is very unusual in that it's the only station on the Liverpool overhead that actually has a sub viaduct underpass for passengers. You can see there the bridge which goes down, the steps that go down to the underpass. You can see them behind this building, and then there's this remarkable footbridge, these steps, and then the footbridge which extends right the way round across. There's a roadway here to come in, and this footbridge extends right across to the steps that take it up to eventually up to Grafton Street. So these are very much in, this is Grafton Street here, and these are the terraces, something like the terraces. But this has taken quite a lot of work to sort out. The junction I think I've shown before, so between us, Bob and I have put a lot of effort into getting this right, and there's still a bit of tweaking to do, I think, to try and get the overall finish. And then all of this area is the massive freight yard and loco depot, and there's got to be a tunnel in here for the standard gauge. Sorry, not standard gauge, for the ordinary railway. This is standard gauge as well, the LOR 4 for 8.5 with the third rail. And then from the Herculaneum station, which is slightly higher than the rest of the stations on the Liverpool Overhead Railway, there is now a steady gradient down to the next station, which is Toxteth Dock. And you can see here, this is some of the docks here beginning to stretch away already. Some of the work that Bob has done. Bob's been doing all the dock area. I've supplied some of the textures and the dock walls, that sort of thing, but there's a lot more to do, and just blocking in just the basic docks is an enormous job. And then we go past, I'm trying to remember the next station along now, and I can't tell you what it is because the station name board isn't there. But anyway, past more docks through to, where are we here? This has got us as far as Wapping Dock, a Wapping Big Dock. As you can see, a lot of dock to accommodate here. And so this is all still very much work in progress, of course, and we're heading here towards the most important station on the line, which is Pier Head, which I featured in the last video. This is another bespoke station, and you can see here the very characteristic overhead railway bridges with these large signs, and there was several of these, so we've tried to incorporate as many of those as we can. And then these are really sort of placeholder buildings for the many different dock buildings that have still got to be produced for this enormous project. Great fun, brilliant fun. Prince's Dock Station, there we are, that's next. And I'm just going to take you now on past some of the other stations, some of the enormous dock areas Here we have a couple of the graving docks. I think those are. Not sure. Maybe. I think they are graving docks. And some of the other docks along the line. The way I've got this is being recorded in Trains a New Era, and the way I've got the colours set are not the same as Bob's, and so you shouldn't really assume that it's going to be quite such a virulent green. They will be darker, suitably muddy and a bit of greeny there. And then we get the drop down to go under the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway coal line, which we've got to model and put in there, and it climbs back up before we get to let's have a look at the station name here, Huskisson Dock, and you get an idea of the scale of some of these structures. And this particular one here is one of my warehouse splines, very uniform, so we've got to make quite a bit of variety there and bring in more warehouse splines. There's a lot of buildings to go, and this is even without thinking of everything that's on this side, which is a city landscape, of course, the landscape of Liverpool. And here we are moving on with a couple of dock cranes there. There are some. I've got a couple of cranes I've got to model for the route, including one which is of a type which I've only got a photograph for, which is of a travelling crane that ran along the tops of warehouse roofs. So that's definitely on my agenda. A long list of material to make, and of course very nice to see Brunel's brilliant Great Eastern paddle steamer in there at Canada Dock. I don't think she did use Liverpool, but I don't think it was Canada Dock. I don't think Canada Dock was even built then, but great to see her there. That looks like a graving dock there. I can't remember quite all the makeup of all the docks, but they're really complex. And then here's another one coming in the other direction on the service. About every 10-15 minute service on the Liverpool overhead. And the reason why I'm taking us along through the route, which hasn't really changed very much, because we've been so busy on the Herculaneum dock end, repeatedly reworking the models until we get the overall fitting. They fit properly in the overall look of it there. And then this is coming round to Seaforth docks, just mapped in at the moment. And on this curve, as it swings round, it's got to the old Seaforth terminus was somewhere about here. And although it's a very attractive building, and I am tempted to make it, the first thing that I'm going to make for here, or the first of those buildings in that position, will be the Carriage Shed, which replaced it. And this is the early days yet, the positioning, as it were, for Seaforth Sands Station, a bit of a tongue twister. And that's on a reverse curve, because there is quite a sharp curve here for the junction piece, which I've got to create for the junction to go off into the carriage sheds here. And then we had a placeholder here before, one of the Andes 06 stations, but now we've got the first go for Seaforth Sands Station. And what I wanted to do there was just to get the shape of it right, the curve, the geometry of it right, so that Bob could check it out fully on the layout, and it does look to be about right. And what happened was the original terminus, it just came across and stopped here, so that curve was never part of the running lines originally. And then when they rebuilt, started working on the docks, and part of that was losing the terminus, or impinging on the terminus, and indeed the old LOR tramway depot, because they had a tram service that ran further north into Liverpool. So they brought in this sharp curve. There's a signal box to go in here, and some point work for the junction to the carriage shed. Originally they used the old terminus, and then they rebuilt it with a ridge and furrow brick structure, which could accommodate more rolling stock. And so this station on a curve has to be sort of slotted in to maintain the route, because it was at this point that the route then went on to joined up with the Lancs and Yorks lines and went down to Seaforth and Litherland station, in which we're not sort of thinking about going much further than about here. Though of course the Aintree racecourse trains went on down through Seaforth, Litherland and on to Aintree. But that's as far as we've taken it so far. Just having a look at that. It's just a little. So you can see here how much we've done. I've not updated my website for several months because there are a number of items from it will all be Liverpool and Overhead Railway rebuilds, not rebuilds, new models. So they will supplement the ones that are released at the moment, and you'll be able to recreate this extraordinary layout here of Herculaneum Dock. This is the subject, of course, of Mike Edge's own real model that he takes on this to display at model railway exhibitions, and he's covered virtually this whole site. But reproducing it has been a real, it really has been a bit of a poser for us. I can see there that we've got sidings cut short. Those have got to go in right down into this, the carriage shed, which was the old Herculaneum Dock terminus before they extended out to Dingle. And it might seem, pretty straightforward to do, but it's not. I can assure you, this really has been quite complicated, and has not been an easy process. So although we've still got very little to show for it in the way of terrain or finished textures, or indeed finished other finished models, just persuading the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway pugs to go under the underpass, which is under the station at Herculaneum Dock, has been quite a challenge. And Mike did warn me that it was higher, that the station was higher than the rest of the route, and sure enough we've learnt that that's been the case. These this was the oil depot for right the way through to the 1960s, I think maybe even into the 1970s. But then when the docks were reduced considerably, rationalised, whatever you want to call that term, all of the dock was filled in, and this is now there's a car park here, and there are apartments here looking out over the Mersey. But the cliff edge, which I know is repeating, but frankly to make a detailed cliff all the way along there would be, I think it would blow trains' brains. These all still are in existence, these casements, and preserved. And you can, if you go onto Google Earth, you'll soon see the sort of area that we're talking about. So underneath Herculaneum Dock, and indeed spreading out this way, as you can see, there's dock lines going hither and yon, and part of this whole project has been real enjoyment in seeing the complexity, for me certainly, I know for Bob as well, complexity of all the dock lines and the possibilities for running all sorts of wonderful freight services and even the odd passenger service over some of them. So that's where we are with this. There's one other thing I want to show you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit driver. I'm not going to save it, and I'm going to, where are we, go back, LOR, I want to edit the route, and I'm just going to show you, now we're right over at the other end of the line, so I'm going to first zoom us right the way back. What are we doing? We're doing about 100 mile an hour, I don't know. Anyway, we're zooming right the way down to the other end of the line, where we've got some track at Herculaneum Dock, which is not Liverpool Overhead Railway track, but which is dock lines. And I just want to show you one of my what I did is I contacted Skipper 1945 and I asked him if it would be okay to reskin his Lancashire and Yorkshire pug. There it was, gone. There it is. And he agreed. And so here it is. Here we are. This is his lovely model of a little 040 pug. And here it is with my reskinning. And let's zoom in a bit. Turn around. And have a look. Better look. Okay, so there we are. So all I've done is I've removed the British Rail line on the wheel on each side, and I've lost the numbers, distinctive numbers, because it's just going to be a generic pug for use on the dock. So we want to have, you know, numerous iterations of it. We want pugs everywhere because they're lovely. And also I'll be looking out for other suitable locos. And I've added, so apart from adding the letters for the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board, I've also added, you can see at the top there, the smoke arresters or spark arresters, which were really important, especially anywhere near the oil. And in fact, I've got a picture I took off the net of a fireless locomotive that was used up by those oil casements, and you can see that Bob has positioned an Esso tanker. That's partly for us to make sure we're getting the height right. You can actually see, looking down there, you can see there's a slight gradient right the way down to that station. Believe me, it took a lot of fiddling. Really did. And it's because, unlike Mike, who his model concentrates on the Herculaneum dock, we're doing the whole job, the whole route, which would be impossible for him to do as a model to take around to exhibitions. But of course in trains you can have the models as big as you like, and so that's why we've had to make all these alterations. So there we are. That's why I haven't updated my website for several months, and that's why Bob is having so much fun gradually getting this to all fit together. The problems we face with some of these, you might think it's pretty straightforward, but it's not. Far from it. It is really quite complex, because everything has to fit together very closely indeed. I'm even looking there and thinking that I think I'm alright. I think that even there, where the walkway goes into the ticket office, Herculaneum dock ticket office there. You can see the ticket office through there with the ticket collector. And this was the walkway down from Grafton Street, and these stairs then took you down to ground level to the roadway here, and then the tracks underneath the Liverpool overhead railway. So there we are, Herculaneum dock finally, more or less finished, we hope. Maybe a little tweak or two still to do, looking at that, but nevertheless well on its way. And so I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any comments at all, if you have any models of warehouses or are thinking of making some, please let us know. We'd be very pleased, because boy do we need a lot of warehouses and other typical dockside buildings. Similarly, cranes, anything dock related, ships, you name it, I think we could do with it for this model. It would be really good for this layout. So there we are. Any questions, queries, comments, please do post them. I'll aim to answer them. And watch out for an update to my website, which I'm hoping to do within about the next month, certainly by the end of November, with some of these models included, and so you can start looking about making your own Liverpool overhead railway. And after that, watch out for a further update as we concentrate now to the other end of the line at Seaforth Sands terminus for most services.